Hola, somos Tania Moreno y Daniela Álvarez de TCU.
Y estás escuchando College Volleyball Weekly. ¡Go Frogs!
This is Tania Moreno and Daniela Álvarez from TCU.
And you're on College Beach Volleyball Weekly. ¡Go Frogs!
Hi everyone, I'm Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford Beach Volleyball, and you are listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
Hi, I'm Alana Rennie of Arizona Beach Volleyball.
And I'm Alex Parker of Arizona Beach Volleyball, and you're listening to College Beach Volleyball Weekly. Is that right?
No? All right, good day, everyone. Another episode of College Volleyball Weekly Beach Top 20. We lost someone this week, Mads Fitzpatrick, but I know she's probably cooling off the hot hand because she's been hot all weekend. But I've got the X Factor. She's going to give it to you. That's right. Charlie Ekstrom going to give it to you from Stanford University. Always great having you back on, Charlie.
Always great to be back, Rob. Mads, we miss you, but I'm glad that I can still be here and that we can still chat volley.
Yeah, and we understand, especially when you're hot playing number threes, you're playing so hot, coach moves you to the number twos and you keep winning. So we get it. You got to cool off for the next weekend competition.
Yes, very fair.
Well, we had week 2 of Collegiate Beach Volleyball, and we saw a ton of movement this week and some upsets. But Charlie, what in your eyes were some of the big matches of the week in the top 20?
Yeah, I think like you just said, it was a huge week of volleyball. I mean, we were talking last week about how this last, weekend was going to be a big one for a lot of big name schools playing against one another. And I think I'll do my top 2 matchups, one East Coast, one West Coast, so that we still get that East Coast representation, even though Mads isn't here. And I'll start over there with LSU versus LMU, LSU taking the win over LMU, 3-2 decision, coming down to some pretty tight matchups, coming down to, I believe it was the threes court, 16-14 finish at the threes, with Riley Allred and Holly Carlton taking the win to decide the duel for LSU. That was a very intense matchup, which I heard we've talked about this a little bit, Rob, but I heard that it got gnarly between the two teams. And I think I would have loved to have been present for that, because I think that would have been a fun one to watch, but it's really fun to read the stats and hear the results of. And then moving on to the West Coast side, I think that my top matchup of the weekend to watch, I think is maybe unanimously nationwide, the top matchup of USC versus UCLA, with UCLA narrowly edging the win over USC with the 3-2 decision. That was an incredible, all of the scores of that, all of the little highlight clips. I didn't get to watch it because I was over at USC competing instead of Nate's speech at UCLA. But everything that I heard, everything that I saw looked like it was a high level of competition from USC and UCLA.
Now, I have to agree with you and piggyback onto your LSU-LMU matchup, because I was reading through the recap, and gosh, I guess it was streamed, but I was working at Mapes Beach at the Battle for LA, within miles of you, but unable to watch because apparently there was a stream, and I would have tried to watch it all if I could have. So, but yeah, high drama was it at Death Volley this last weekend?
Yeah, at Death Volley. I heard that there was a little bit from an anonymous source. I heard that there was a little bit of LMU coming out, thinking that they had some easy dubs, and LSU kind of coming in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder with a lot of fresh faces, and these fresh faces kind of coming out and getting their jobs done, which was awesome to see.
Well, looking at the way that the scoring happened, you had LSU get point number 1 for the duel, and then LMU took the next 2, which came down to the, I believe it was a 2s and the 3s, and down to the number 3 court finally, which was Riley Allred and Holly Carlton, who happened to be one of the hottest pairs in the nation, and they ended up getting that W for the duel for LSU.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting too, because you saw the wins at the 1s and the 5s from LMU. So, really just in general, we're seeing a lot of depth throughout the nation with all teams. Really, there's just a greater amount of depth, but I think it's really cool to see LMU putting up the wins at the 2 edges, and then LSU kind of like evening it out in the middle. So we've got like the little sandwich of a matchup there. I do think that was a really impressive match at the 3s, like you were just saying with Riley Allred and Holly Carlton, because I believe based on kind of like the box score, what I had seen was that they were trailing for a long time, and it ended up being a comeback win for them to win at the end there. So that's a very, very respectful battle by both sides, but really awesome by LSU to come on top of that.
Yep. Well, I'm going to pick a West Coast one too. And Obviously I got to pick USC UCLA. A lot of friends on both sides of the court, and it's hard rooting and being, but being there, seeing the level of play. But I'm actually going to pick another one, UCLA Grand Canyon, because Grand Canyon actually led going into the second flight, or the wave. We had it, polar peel, wave, or flight. What's it going to be? Grand Canyon going into the second flight was leading 2-1 on UCLA, and it came down to the number 3 court, I believe it was, on which UCLA ended up taking. So, but it's exciting because you don't get to see too many players playing with the limited streams and all that. But some of the players that you played them on Saturday, the number 2 pair, Abby Hansen and Alanis Navas, and they played phenomenally on Sunday at the Battle for LA. Navas had incredible shots, but apparently you're getting all those on Saturday, swatting away. And then Abby Hansen, as young as she is, another good blocker. I almost see like a Charlie Extra version 2 come in there. Is similar build and swatting a lot of balls. So Grand Canyon is definitely a team to watch. I feel like although they took a couple losses this weekend, they're definitely one of those teams that could get you if you're not really taking them that seriously.
I could not agree more. We matched up against them. Like you were saying, Allie and Alanis, Kate and I played against them and we took the win. They're a very, very respectable team. Allie is a huge blocker. I remember her housing me, tried to hit one over her like sneakily, and she kind of housed me a little bit. So I knew not to mess with her anymore. But it was great that we were able to take that win off of them. But GCU did edge ahead of Stanford and took us 3-2 down to the threes in a third set match. It's really you're seeing a lot in the nation, it kind of coming down to the threes court in the third set matches. But GCU edged ahead of us, and they're a highly respectable team. They always put up a good battle. But again, like I was just saying, we're seeing depth nationwide that I've never seen before in the sport of beach volleyball.
We definitely have as a subtopic as we go on, because going through data as a volley nerd that I am, I was like, wow, here's a pattern that we're seeing. We're definitely going to have that discussion, especially since I'm just a armchair quarterback. You're the actual athlete competing. So
yes.
So with that, let's look at some of the teams, the remaining unbeaten teams of the nation. I just want to get your thoughts. FIU's unbeaten. They've had Nebraska at a neutral site, Jacksonville, UNF, and I guess that's the 3. Coastal Carolina is the 4th team. They stay unbeaten after this weekend, or will that continue to go through the rest of the season in the CCSA?
I'm really interested. FIU has always been a competitor. They've been a little bit quiet to the start of this season. Like I haven't heard too much from them, but granted, we are only 2 weeks into season. But we're looking up, they're an undefeated team. They've always been heavy competitors. They've always had like that little bit of international flair that they bring to the court and they bring to battle. And I think that they're always going to be a very respectable opponent. But I think that they're going to be kind of one of those underdogs that, they were ranked a little bit lower than they usually are. They've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They've got the potential to do some really great things this season.
Yep. Couldn't agree with you more. Next team that's shown up is the 12th. Well, actually, I don't know if I need to compare my rankings, but 12th ranked Pepperdine at the time. They got wins against Concordia, Cal State LA, Cal State Bakersfield, Vanguard, and Pacific. I still think they need to get challenged, and I think they will this weekend, because there's no doubt Marcio is able to get some talent there, and he's a great coach, and he's got a great coaching staff with him. But I want to see them go up against some other bigger programs, more of the reputable names, before I start saying, hey, Pepperdine's in the top 10.
Yeah, no, I think you said it best. I think that they need a little bit of heavier competition under their belt. We've seen these kind of top 8 pairs kind of hashed out, go head to head in the last 2 weeks, and Pepperdine hasn't quite gotten dipped their toes into the water yet on that. They're going to this coming weekend. So I think that this will be their real test to show. They had a little bit rougher of a season last year than we were expecting or really anticipating out of a usual pretty dominant Pepperdine team. And so I think that this is their weekend. It could be their breakout.
Wow, Charlie, I like the metaphors you're using, especially for a team called the Pepperdine Waves, dip their toes in the water. Why not jump into the shore break? Or
just trying to be all punny and witty here as much as I possibly can.
And that's why you go to Stanford. All right, the next unbeaten, kind of like, I think it's catching people by surprise, but LSU. Look at these wins: Stephen F. Austin, LMU, Southern Miss, Texas A&M Kingsville, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Spring Hill College, Tulane, Georgia State, and Nicholls State. I mean, yeah, there's some teams in there that are for sure wins, but they're also undefeated with some LMU in there.
Yeah, I mean, LSU is always an impressive team. What Russell's able to do every single year with a group of talent. I mean, we were all expecting them to kind of be in a rebuilding program year this year, just especially with the fact that they lost so many of their starters. But I mean, knowing a couple of the girls on that team, I know that they're all pretty gritty girls and they've got a couple grad transfers in. I think that the really impressive thing that I see from LSU is not only that they're undefeated and with the win of LMU, but the win of LMU is their only 3-2 decision. They have mostly sweeps, maybe 1-4-1 sprinkled in there, but they are winning games 5-0 and remaining undefeated on season. So I think that that's just very, very impressive out of this team that's fairly young in the beach volleyball scene.
Yeah, for sure. They are, obviously Russell does a magnificent job with what he's got. And I don't know where he finds his talent. Oh, you played indoor last year and you're 6'2 plus? Come on down. I'm going to teach you how to play some beach volleyball.
Yep, exactly. He's like, all right, I'm going to give you the keys. You've got the height. I can't teach you that, but I can teach you all the rest of it. Let's go.
Yeah, I got a great staff. Our next one, I moved up, big move this week. TCU also unbeaten. Let me pull up their resume so far this season. FAU, UAB, Cal Poly, Southern Miss, South Carolina, Stetson, Georgia State, Florida State, and Central Arkansas. Quite the resume already.
Yeah, TCU, I mean, we talked with Danny and Tanya before season started. TCU is an incredibly impressive team this year. They were already making waves, to go back to my punny metaphors of the ocean. But I think that TCU was already making waves, making program history last year. And then with some transfers in, with some just redevelopment of current players, getting some freshman talent in. I mean, I'm looking at them and they are highly formidable. And I think that their win over FSU, that's their first ever win of a top 5 team. And it bumped them into the top 5 for the first time. Mm-hmm. Now I believe they're number 3 this week on the polls. I mean, well-deserved. And I think that TCU is kind of like, they're like the underdog that's not really an underdog, that's an underdog this year. And it's cool to see out of them.
Yep. Well, they've got quite the lineup going with their Latina pairs between Danny and Tanya. And then, of course, you got Ana Vergara, and she's teamed up with Maria Gonzalez, who's Puerto Rican. And then you add in Megan Murray, the UCLA transfer, who has a winning record, and it was a phenomenal athlete for the Bruins. And there she is at the 5s. So got 3 solid pairs going in it right there.
Yeah. And I mean, then you look at the 2s pair, I believe it's Haley Brockett and Sutton McTavish. Mm-hmm. And then who is Alexis Philippone playing with? Let me find them.
Let's see if I can look that up really fast.
I know I'm trying, it's slipping my mind right now, but even those pairs of, I mean, TCU just has a lot of depth. Again, like they are playing very, very good volleyball, and a win over FSU is a big win. I mean, FSU is a fairly dominant team just historically. And that's a huge win for TCU to take. Yep.
The last unbeaten team in the nation this year so far at this point of the season, UCLA coming in hot, 9-0. Let's pull up their resume. Stanford, sorry, Charlie. St. Mary's, Hawaii, St. Mary's again, Hawaii again, USC, Long Beach State, Grand Canyon, and Cal Poly. Thoughts?
I think the incredible thing about UCLA is that right there, what you just said, they are the only they're the last remaining undefeated team that we've said here. But I'd say that they arguably, objectively, subjectively, whatever it is, have had the hardest strength of schedule of any of the undefeated teams left right now. They have not played. I think St. Mary's might be the only unranked team that they've played, but St. Mary's is still a competitor. Like they always are very, very gritty every year. I think that they're slept on way too hard every year. But UCLA has been playing really, really strong teams and performing at very high levels. They look great. I cracked a joke there that I won my match, but I mean, my match that we won in Hawaii when they beat Stanford, it was like a 25-23 in the second set that we ended up pulling out the win on. It was a battle and a half. And
yeah,
I mean, UCLA is always talented, but I think that this year I was really, really impressed with their performance this past weekend, continuously impressed with them, but they did great.
yeah. You know what I thought was funny about being at Battle of LA or Battle for LA this weekend was that first match against USC, how Steinmetzger, who notched his 200th victory, congratulations, Stein. He shuffled the deck in the ones and twos. So everyone had been scouting for probably Lexi and Leah at the number ones and Riley and Abby at the number twos. So pretty, I guess it may have thrown them off. I don't know, but they definitely were really good. Everyone knows Abby is a good blocker, and Lexi coming off to play defender when she has got one, she can block, and two, she hits the tar out of the ball.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I got to see Lexi play full-time defense last year at training camp when we were playing together. She was playing in our like final tournament for USA training. She was playing with Tori Van Winden, and Lexi played full-time defense. So I got to see her as a defender, I think it was like one of her first like true defender moments. And I was really impressed. I mean, Lexi Denenberg's a freaking phenomenal athlete. Abby's an incredible blocker. And so seeing Lexi kind of get to play some defense as dominant of a player as she is, I think that it's really cool to see just how she's kind of refining her game that much more.
Yep. Well, with that, the polls came out this week, and we were chatting about it before coming on, but the AVCA and the College Beach Volleyball .com poll, there was, I guess, significant differences between the two, but I broke it down for us simple people easily here. In the AVCA poll, 3 teams moved up, 6 moved down, 11 stayed put. In the College Beach VB.com poll, 8 teams moved up, 8 moved down, and 4 stayed put. So, and you said you agreed more with the AVCA poll. So defend it.
Yeah, so I'd say with the AVCA poll, what I saw, I was really looking kind of at that like top 8, top 10 shuffle up, because I'm still waiting to kind of see big moves out of the 10 through 20 positions. I think that upset season is coming. It hasn't necessarily started quite yet, but I mean, we are always ready for an underdog team to come and upset somebody in the top 10. But looking at the top 10, I mean, we had ranks 1 through 8, 2 beat 1, 4 beat 3, 6 beat 5, and 8 beat 7 from last week's AVCA poll. And so AVCA basically went and flipped all of those pairings, all of those matchups. And I mean, I think that it was well deserved. I mean, while you look at all of it, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like this team beat this team, so therefore they go up, they go down, like a little flip-flop throughout the weeks. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was interesting, because I don't necessarily always see that out of AVCA. I feel like this year's the first year that I'm seeing like very, very tangible changes out of like specific matchups, which is cool.
Wow, look at that breakdown by Charlie Ekstrom. I don't even want to go because I've already been dwarfed without saying anything.
You are hyping me up way too much this week. You gotta stop.
You're busting it out. Well, with that, let's look at some of the hot pairs this week. I'm going to start at number 5s. TCU's Rochelle Scott and Megan Murray, 6-0. LMU's Jacinda Ramirez and Isabel Reffel. I believe 6-0. I didn't type it in, but I'm pretty sure they're getting it done. And we're going to have this discussion after we go through the 5. I think you know where I'm going with this. Thoughts on that number 5 pairs?
I think that those are the 2 number 5 pairs that I was looking at, that I was like, yep, those are the dominant ones. You couldn't have hit the nail more on the head. I mean, Megan and Rochelle, they've kind of become a staple for that TCU lineup, as have Jacinda and Isabel of LMU. I mean, I know what conversation that you're sparking, so I'm not going to go there quite yet. But I think that it's really cool to kind of see these 5s pairs being like really, really, really solid staples for some really talented teams.
Yep. And then the number 4s pairs is TCU again, Maria Gonzalez, Anna Vergara, 6-0. Sophie Moore, Natalie Miskowski, 9-0. Thoughts?
I got to see Sophie and Natalie play in person. I didn't get to see Maria and Anna. I have heard wonderful things about both. Sophie and Natalie are very dominant as freshmen. I was saying this last week, that they've got a maturity to them that is beyond their freshman year, which is very impressive. And Maria and Anna's a freshman. I can already tell that she's got a maturity to her coming out as a freshman and being undefeated right out of the season. Like that's very, very impressive. And again, that conversation's starting to spark. We're looking at these fours pairs. Again, TCU having their 4s and 5s pairs both being staples is a pretty solid notch under their belt. And Sophie and Natalie with UCLA having that 4s as kind of a solid start. We were talking about waves with 2s, 4s, 6s starting, and then 1s, 3s, 5s having that 4s pair being kind of a staple, kind of can ignite a little fire to start for the team.
Yep. Well, I have to say Lexi Denenberg and Abby Van Winkle got pair of the week, but I could have easily made a hard case for Sophie Moore and Nellie Miskowski. After seeing how they played, they are freshmen and they came in like they are veterans, getting wins on their courts, like being down and able to come back and turn it. So a bright future for that pair.
Hi everyone, this is Madison Fitzpatrick at Florida State, and you're listening or watching College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition Top 20.
Hi, I'm Erica Brock from FIU. Hi, I'm Mackenzie Morris from FIU. And you're listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
Jumping to the number 3s, Riley Allred, Holly Carlton of LSU. And I got to drop this one, Elena Chacon and Mads Fitzpatrick, contributor to College Volleyball Weekly, although she did get moved up to the number 2s this last week, but they're undefeated as well. So strong couple teams, and the traditional CCSA powerhouses, LSU and FSU. Thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that hearing from my anonymous source from LSU, I've heard that this 3s pair, the thing that they've been doing incredibly well is finding a way to come back from deficits. And I think that that's cool to see, because Holly Carlton is a newbie to the beach. She's a grad transfer from Florida. She's super tall, like obviously going to be a little bit dominant because she's an incredibly tall player, but seeing her be able to work back and hearing that she's able to work back from these deficits and come back and is now undefeated, like is a staple for the LSU lineup. That is really, really cool to see that kind of maturity developing, because she's a mature player, but immature on the scope of beach. And so I think that's awesome. And then, like you just mentioned, I mean, our girl Mads, we can't not hype her up. But with them getting moved up to the 2s, they were undefeated at the 3s. They won their game at the 2s against TCU too. So made that kind of 3-2 decision that much more of a 3-2 decision, with Mads and Elena kind of being able to bounce back and forth between this 2s, 3s position and still put up wins for FSU. Makes it awesome.
Yep. And the other one, a number 2 pairs for the LSU. You've been seeing this name a lot. Parker Bracken and Kylie DeBerg, both 9-0. I haven't seen a whole bunch of them. I haven't seen their record, and that's about it. But I mean, they're doing some excellent stuff.
Yeah, what I have heard about those two is that they are dominant. That's pretty much all I hear. I haven't seen much. I haven't heard much other than the fact that they just win. Like they just go out there and they get their job done, which again is something super awesome out of first wave pairs of that 2s, 4s, 6s. I mean, I'm not sure how they do it at LSU. You were just mentioning earlier that I think that they go 4s, 5s, 6s, and then 1s, 2s, 3s. I know that for the waves that we've been playing has been 2s, 4s, 6s, then 1s, 3s, 5s. It depends on what school, what the host wants to do. But I think that that's really cool. Again, like fresh faces. I've never matched up against Parker or Kylie, and they are putting up wins already as this kind of rookie pairing. Nobody's really heard their names. Nobody has scouting reports on them, and they are winning against big names.
Yep. Well, that brings us to our number 1s. I have to mention 3 of them. It's only everyone. There's no undefeated number 1s teams. TCU's Danny Alvarez, Tanya Moreno, 8-1. Erica Brock, Mackenzie Morris, and Megan Rice, Rekha Orsi-Toth from LMU and FAU. They're both all 7-1, the latter 2 pairs. But when we know they're legit, Erica and Mackenzie just beat Maddie and Brooke Bauer of FSU, and we know that's not an easy win. And Maddie and Brooke just beat Danny and Tanya of TCU. So CCSA is going to be an alley brawl pretty much the entire way through.
Oh yeah, I think CCSA. There's grit in the CCSA right now. There is some depth. There is some real power coming out of them. And like you just said, I mean, Erica and Mackenzie beat Maddie and Brooke, but lost to Danny and Tanya. Danny and Tanya lost to Brooke and Maddie, but beat Erica and Mackenzie. It's going all around. It's being passed around. They're all competing against one another. All of them are dominating everybody else. They're doing really good things all the way around. And so, the CCSA is seeing some big power. And then, looking at Megan and Reka of LMU, they're an incredible ones pair as well. Megan's got that kind of veteran. She's a veteran to the sport of volleyball altogether. She played indoor and beach throughout her entire career, has done amazing things for LMU on both sides of it. So I think that it's really cool. I mean, she's stepping in as this kind of like graduate player, like last season role, and just being really dominant at the ones. So it's awesome to see.
Yep. Well, kind of have to move through quickly. I may have to move our topic to next week. And actually it'd be better because it'd be great to have Mads in on the conversation too. But what are we watching this week? I'm just to mention the tournaments, and then you can just insert some of the key matchups that caught your eye. Thursday through Saturday is the Outrigger Queens Cup. It has Hawaii, Davis, TCU, Nebraska, and Cal. Then on Friday through Saturday, the South Carolina Challenge has Pepperdine, LSU, South Carolina, Mercer, and Louisiana Monroe. And then Saturday through Sunday, the Stetson Sun and Sand Invitational. Florida State, USC, Tampa, Stetson, and Florida Atlantic. Did I say that? Okay. So all of them are good ones, but what is one that you would, if you had only 2 hours to watch, what would you watch?
Okay, I think to start, I really want to watch the Florida State versus USC matchup, because I think that's, I mean, East Coast versus West Coast powerhouse schools notoriously throughout the years. I'm really excited to watch that matchup. But I think if I was to pick a challenge, I really want to see this South Carolina challenge, to see Pepperdine get tested, and also to see LSU versus South Carolina, see kind of these like big names start to battle out, because again, the CCSA conference is powerhouse conference and it got split in two. Everybody's going to kind of be vying for these titles. So I'm really excited to see this South Carolina challenge. I know that there's a lot of off weekends for a lot of West Coast teams, because those of us on the quarter system have finals this coming week. Unfortunately, I will not be competing. I just get to be a spectator. So
Right. You're going to be watching these streams for sure,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Well, I'm only insert mine from the fan perspective, Stetson, Sun and Sand, because it's SC, Florida State, Stetson, and FAU. And I mean, between having some of the top pairs on each of those teams of the number ones and twos, it's just going to be grind fest. And don't be surprised to see everything go to three set tie breaks with extended third sets. So always exciting. I'm hoping there'll be a stream or someone will be Instagram living, but for the most part, get on it. With Charlie Ekstrom here, the Stanford Cardinal, they got the week off so they can study their opponents all weekend long.
Study our opponents and our classes.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie, thanks for coming on again to College Volleyball Weekly, week 2 recap and week 3 preview.
Thanks as always for having me. Stoked to be here.